Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, we've now had, as per usual, Israel carrying out two, three more assassinations. We had the assassination of Ali Larijani the other day, and apparently today Israel assassinated the head of Iranian intelligence. And it seems as if Israel has also escalated the attacks on Iran's oil and gas infrastructure, which is an escalation. At least we were told that the administration had made clear to Israel that's not a good idea to attack the Iran's
And
oil
I
and gas
believe that.
infrastructure. Yeah.
And I believe that.
And Iran is clearly making clear that it will retaliate appropriately against the other oil and gas infrastructure. So that's with the Strait of Hormuz closed effectively, and now attacks on oil and gas infrastructure in
Yeah,
the
but this
Persian
is,
Gulf. Yeah.
but see, as we look at these assassinations, Laranjani, for example, is the best example. You know, George, when you think about it, ever since Iran decided to start refining uranium again, what was it, 2005,
Mhm. It was
2003,
2002, something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who's the one name we would always hear all the way up until he was assassinated? Laranjani.
Right.
He has been a fixture, a fixture. There was a BBC personality that got hell for saying, "Yeah, we worked with him, talked with him over the year, very pragmatic, even though he worked with this disgusting regime." Of course, they have to say that kind of nonsense.
John Simpson. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Awful. He's an awful person, John Simpson.
Awful
Yeah. Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Okay. But that his assassination is an attack on American policy
Yeah.
because he would be the person you could deal with. You like him, you don't like him, you know him though.
Right.
You know him. You have a track record with him. And obviously, you and I have already talked about it. That would be the person you probably talk to at one point. No, the Israelis don't want you to talk to anybody.
You're right. And of course, it goes to show that essentially Israel is completely driving this policy. Because if the United States, and one has to assume from all the Trump's pronouncements that they want to get out of this and find some way to engineer a
No, no,
negotiated
no,
outcome.
no, no,
But
no,
you know,
no. You're
Israel,
in and you're going to stay in.
that's right. But Israel is escalating. Israel is going to, step by step, Israel is escalating. And, with Trump sort of ranting and raving. And before we sort of, go on, let's take a look at Trump's performance yesterday on St. Patrick's Day. He had the Irish Prime Minister with him. And, he just seemed completely unhinged as he spoke. Um, where are we? Yes. So
Oh, another sad sack. Yeah.
Right. In fact,
yes.
I said you have to attack Garg Island. You have to attack them years ago when they were acting up. They've been acting up for 37, 47, I guess now 48 years. For 48 years, they've been bad players, vicious players, and you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. If they got a nuclear weapon, I would say they would have used it within 24 hours after having it. And they would have had it if we didn't bomb them out from a great raid with the B-2 bombers 8 months ago or so. You would have had a nuclear war in the Middle East and maybe beyond. I think it would have hit Europe. Maybe not Ireland, but it would have hit Europe. I think you would have been a nice piece of it. It all gets you. It's big enough that you would have been affected. They would have hit Europe eventually.
And a non-committal there.
So,
The Irish Prime Minister had no idea how to react to
no,
it.
no, it was embarrassing because he was just sort of squirming in that chair. I mean, and, but Trump's accounts now seem more and more unhinged because now Iran was about to launch a nuclear war. It's not just that Iran was going to have nuclear weapons; Iran was actually going to use those nuclear weapons. It's just simply just making stuff up. and as he goes along with, and these stories become ever wilder in his imagination. And now he's going to address the issue of yesterday, which was the resignation of Joe Kent, who was the kind of counterterrorism chief working under Tulsi Gabbard. And I think Tulsi Gabbard had wanted him there. So he was essentially number two to Tulsi, and he resigned yesterday. And so here is Trump responding to his resignation.
Reaction to that? Did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that presidents should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash, hundreds of millions of dollars? You would have This was a
it was their own money.
I just love looking at this Irish Prime Minister's face. So he's sort of, it's like, you know, real kind of, you're a hostage and you can't get out. You know, you have to sort of sit and listen and sort of smile politely. I mean, it's painful to watch.
Could you imagine how back in Ireland they're reporting on the Prime Minister's visit to the Oval Office, and that's all they talked about? And this money thing. This is one of Sean Hannity's favorite ones. They pallets of money were given to the mullahs, blah blah. That was part of the sanctions relief of the JCPOA. It was their money.
Yeah, it's their money.
So
That's the point.
I don't know what
Yeah.
he's talking about.
Yep.
Hundreds of million people forget that. Does anybody remember? Right? You remember. Hundreds of millions of dollars in a Boeing 757. I think they had two of them loaded. They took the seats out and they put cash. And it was so much that there wasn't a bank in Virginia, Maryland, or DC that had any money left. They stripped them of all their money, put it into place, sent it to Iran, almost as ransom. That's not going to happen with Trump.
Just making it up as he goes along.
Completely.
Nobody ever said it. Can you imagine if I did that? So they've been a threat for a long time.
Can you stop it, George? It's an interesting here. Okay, that's Vance, that's Rubio. Who's the?
I'm not sure who that third person is. Yeah.
Look how they're holding their hands. He's like, there he goes again.
Yes.
And Marco Rubio again in the center.
I
Interesting.
didn't terminate Obama's horrible deal that he made, the Iran nuclear deal. You would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago.
So this is a new elaboration. If I hadn't terminated the JCPOA, we would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago. It's roughly what, 2022. A nuclear war.
You would have had nuclear holocaust.
Nuclear holocaust.
We didn't bomb the site. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people, because, and there are some people, I guess, that would.
Now, this, of course, is very interesting because before we get on to the Joe Kent's letter, it is worth looking at what his boss, Tulsi Gabbard, who is still there and will be testifying today on the Hill about the intelligence findings on Iran, because she essentially defined her own career, right, the arc of her career,
right,
as opposition to a war on Iran. So here's some highlights from Tulsi. Just recently, not 20 years ago, just very recently.
President Trump, your Iran strategy has been ill-advised and very short-sighted. You need to change course now and get back into the Iran nuclear agreement before it's too late. Set aside your pride. Set aside your political calculations for the good of our country. Just do the right thing. We've got to be clear-eyed about the situation that we are in, that inching closer, actually more than inching, speeding towards an all-out war with Iran would make the wars that we've seen in Iraq and in Afghanistan look like a picnic. It will be far more costly in lives, and American taxpayer dollars, and all towards accomplishing what goal, what objective? I think that's really at the crux of this decision that President Trump made. Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran.
Sanctions kicking in at midnight Sunday target Iran's oil exports, banking, and shipping, even though UN inspectors say Iran is still complying with the nuclear
The
deal.
United States will pursue additional sanctions tougher than ever before.
Third, he designated Iran's military as a terrorist organization.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced that the U.S. is designating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terror group.
Today, the United States is continuing to build its maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime.
Hardly recognize them now.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including its Quds Force, as a foreign terrorist organization.
With this terror designation, the U.S. can sanction pretty much anybody who talks to or deals with or has any business whatsoever with the IRGC.
And fourth, he continues to deploy more and more U.S. troops to the region.
Just moments ago, the Pentagon authorized an additional 1,000 American troops to the Middle East in response to growing concerns over
The
Iran.
Trump administration announced yesterday that a U.S. aircraft carrier and a bomber task force are being sent to areas closer to Iran.
Yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. Let my message today be very clear. We are watching and we will come after you.
We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran. I'm asking you to join me and support my legislation for no more presidential. Even as people in the administration say, hey, look, we don't want to go to war against Iran. You look at people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and others within the administration who have talked about waging regime change war against Iran for a very long time. They have stated their intent and made their objective very clear. Your question is the most essential one. How does a war with Iran serve the best interests of the American people of the United States? A war that would undermine our national security, and it would strengthen terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. It would carry a heavy human cost, and it would cost us taxpayers trillions of dollars. Forget about investing in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. Forget about having the resources that we need for things like healthcare, education, affordable housing. We wouldn't have those resources because this would go towards yet another extremely devastating, costly war with Iran.
If you were to poll on that question, and it is polled, you would find that what you just said has overwhelming support with voters in both parties, not just your party, the Democratic Party, but with Republicans as well. And yet I predict with certainty that you will be attacked for saying what you just did. And that tells you everything. Tulsi Gabbard.
Iran's cyber operations and capabilities.
And this is her, she's testifying here, March 2025. Now she's in the administration. And as DNI and as a member of the cabinet, not just any official, she's a member of the cabinet. This is her testimony, March 2025, about Iran.
Present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels.
All right. Now, we can see here that this, what she has done by staying within the administration isn't just, okay, well, she's a politician without any principle. Because, and that would be acceptable if, let's say, she's DHS. She's doing health and human services. Oh, well, that's not my bailiwick. I'll just get on with these things. She's at the very core of policymaking. She's right at the center of it.
She can't say, I want to stay in so I can make influence from within inside. That's rubbish now.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
It's time to resign.
And she hasn't done so. And that's why you have to say her position, I think, is truly despicable. I mean, you can't mince words. It's just despicable what she.
Well, I mean, all the more so, George, is that, as you've pointed out many times, is that Tulsi Gabbard was saying this until she stopped saying it.
Yes.
Donald Trump didn't talk about this at all.
Right. That's right. No.
I mean, in the 2024 election, where Wesson ran,
didn't talk about. No.
Didn't talk about it.
And now here then is the open letter, or the letter of resignation that Joe Kent sent yesterday.
Well, just as a preamble, George, I think I admire and I respect what Joe Kent did. Okay. However, everyone, keep in mind he's what I call empire light. Okay. I mean, his critique of American foreign policy is quite flaccid, in my opinion. Okay. I mean, he's not like John Bolton or Lindsey Graham, but he's still, within that Overton window. Go ahead.
Right. I think so. But on the other hand, look, I mean, he was a political figure. He sought office twice. Exactly. He twice ran for Congress unsuccessfully. So he had to do what you need to do. I mean, if you're running on the GOP platform, then you have to espouse a GOP line. And what people like him did is they carved out this very strange position that, Trump is really fantastic because when he makes these attacks like assassinating General Soleimani, well, it's very limited. And so it's very limited, very targeted, no boots on the ground, no protracted war, no forever wars, and it's fantastic. So that's the story. So, yeah, I'm supporting Trump, but Trump is going to keep us out of wars.
The empire light.
Yeah. No, I think so. Nonetheless, he resigned. And that's very rare. Not many people resign, and he resigned from a relatively senior position. I mean, not very senior, but relatively senior. And as we'll see in this letter, he kind of addresses the elephant in the room as to who's driving U.S. foreign policy. So here is, after much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position as Director of National Counterterrorism, and then I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. And it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. This is the thing that really got everybody very, very agitated, because that's, it's something everyone knows, but you're not supposed to say.
Yeah, well, it's like saying, I have a number of reasons why I'm resigning, but the first and most important one is. Exactly.
That's right. I support the values and foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. Then, in your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. He, of course, never defeated ISIS. And nor is it clear what was the purpose of killing General Soleimani? So
when he was on a diplomatic mission
right.
to Baghdad to kill more ISIS.
Right,
Okay.
right, exactly. And defeating ISIS, don't I just remember Giuliani visiting the Oval Office and goofing around with Trump,
With perfume.
yeah, perfume, yeah, cologne.
Yeah. So you
Early,
defeat them, you embrace them, you hug them.
that's right. And he says he's a tough guy. He's good. He's right. He's a figure in the Trumpian world. He's a tough guy. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. I mean, is there anything there that's false? I mean,
no lies detected.
This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States, and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nations the lives and thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. And then, as a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. Anyway, so that was his.
You can't say there were members of the administration that didn't believe that, because obviously he did. He wrote it and he signed his name.
Right.
So, I mean, this narrative it's not a red herring, everyone. It's well known.
That's right. That's right. But you see, this caused the huge outrage.
Oh yeah.
How dare anyone suggest that Israel has had any influence on American policy? You can say what you like about Trump, you can say what you like about Bush, Clinton, anything you like. But the suggestion that Israel somehow guides US policy, that's an outrage. So here's Alan Dershowitz, here's this headline of his I guess article: neo-Nazi, Jew-hating, Israel basher quits administration. Good riddance to bad garbage. This is a man who served his country and lost his wife, who also was serving a country. So, did Alan Dershowitz serve his country?
I don't think he served.
I don't think he served, but he was of the age.
Well, he might have served in the IDF, but we don't know about that.
And he's saying good riddance to bad garbage there. Anyway, he then goes on. Here's Dershowitz. Joe Kent, who cavorts with Nazis and blames the Jews for everything. I didn't read anything there about the Jews. I mean, I
didn't either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has resigned in protest over the Iran attack.
Okay, what is this capital P?
He's acquiring the Trumpian way of writing.
Yeah, he's the Trumpian grammar. Yeah.
Good point. Protest. In his letter, he invokes anti-Semitic tropes. Well, they always say this anything at all that anyone says unfavorable about Israel is already an anti-Semitic trope.
My comprehension, my reading skills really must be deteriorating, because George just read us that letter. I didn't see any anti-Semitic tropes, but maybe I'm just my eyesight.
No, but that's the way to silence. The way to silence all criticism. Just say, oh well, it's anti-Semitic. This is a tried and true trick. Like Chuck Schumer does this. Well, yes, it's perfectly okay to criticize Israel, but you mustn't engage in anti-Semitic tropes. So Schumer will decide what is acceptable to criticize about Israel. You can't. He'll decide, well, that's anti-Semitic. About Israel's, the Jews, and the media they control. I didn't read any of that. Getting us into wars. And then he says here, this is where Dershowitz gets really deeply, revoltingly dishonest. He says he includes the Iraq war, which the then Prime Minister of Israel actually opposed. This is this talking point that the Israel lobby has been pushing for some time, that Israel supposedly opposed the Iraq invasion. A total infection, it's an absolute lie. Because anyone who remembers 2003 said, I don't remember Israel opposing this. The people who led the invasion, they were all essentially in bed with Israel. Feith, Pearl, Wolfowitz, Wormser, all of them were in bed with the Israelis. They worked for that think tank in Israel, the Likud associated think tank, and they published that document in the 90s, A Clean Break. All of these people, and then they ended up in Rumsfeld's Pentagon.
Well, we see a little hint of the future here. So he includes the Iraq War, which the then Prime Minister of Israel actually opposed. George, when everything is said and done with this useless war, unnecessary war against Iran, they're going to be saying the same thing. We had nothing to do with it. He's telegraphing to us the future, because the finger pointing is already started. The blame game is already on. Okay.
Right. Now the suggestion is such a profound lie, and it's so obvious that you can just check this, in your data. But this is how the Israel lobby operates. See, what they do, they put a story out, and then it gets repeated in the echo chamber, and very soon it sort of becomes, yeah, well, maybe Israel was against it. I don't remember. It's more than 20 years ago. Maybe Israel was against it. It's they do this all the time. It's like, when there's a horrific atrocity that Israel is behind, then you say, well, it was. I don't think it really happened. I think this was just a lie put out by Hamas or Hezbollah or Iran.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Another thing they do is there was this former National Security Council member. They say that James Baker said to Gorbachev, "Not 1 inch east." Okay, and this is her talking. I don't know where they came up with that. I mean, I hear this story. There's no evidence. Of course,
evidence of it. Yeah.
Archive, it's there. Okay,
yeah, it's there.
But they're doing the Israelization of narrative. Well, I don't know where people come up with that. I mean, Israel obviously was against the Iraqi war. Everybody knows that.
That's right. That's
what they do.
That's exactly what they do. Because then once it gets repeated, then people say, well, yeah, well, maybe Israel was against it. And the same thing with that Baker thing is that, well, yeah, that was just simply something invented by Putin, that Baker said not 1 inch to the east. But we know where to get it. You go to the National Security Archive, and there's that meeting. It was in February 1990, and you can dig it up. But how many people are actually going to do that? That's the whole point about putting these stories out, is that most people then become, well, maybe Baker didn't. Maybe this is just a Russian invention that Baker said, not 1 inch to the east. Anyways, Kent is a liar, bigot, and Nazi lover. So you're really piling it on. He's a liar. Well, so far, the only lies we hear is the one from Dershowitz. Bigot, a Nazi lover. It's good that he's gone. He should be relegated to the waste bin of history, where he joins others of his disgusting ilk. So, you think, well, you're kind of piling on the adjectives here. Anyone who supports this evil man and his bigoted views should join him. Good riddance.
Yeah, well, see, this is part of the strategy. Okay, so they bring out a heavy hitter, and he takes a real hard, pinata swing right there, and hoping that everyone is going to follow Dershowitz's lead. Okay, it ain't going to work, Alan. Sorry.
Right.
When you write stuff like this, you come out as the bigot and the liar.
Yeah, that's right. But just as a reminder, here is Sharon.
There you go. There you go.
PM Sharon, Iraq is our biggest threat. Prime Minister Ariel Sharon told the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee yesterday that Iraq, not the Palestinians, represents the greatest threat to Israel. Sharon added that strategic coordination between Israel and the United States in dealing with Saddam Hussein's regime has reached unprecedented dimensions. And then Prime Minister Sharon told the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee yesterday that Iraq and not the Palestinians, and then he says, the Prime Minister said that while Israel is not trying to persuade the U.S. to launch an assault on Baghdad, an event that may take place in the next few months. Regardless, Israel is certainly not opposed to such a move. Well, thank you. And then here again, this is the Guardian. You can see the date, November
November
2002.
2002. Okay.
Yep. And here's the Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, today dismissed an Israeli call to attack Iran immediately following a strike on Iraq, and called the war in Iran the gravest possible error. And in an interview in today's Times, the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon identified Iran as a center of world terror. Mr. Sharon advocated a military strike against the country as soon as the US and Britain had completed their proposed attack on Iraq. That was the point. They said, yeah, let's do Iraq first, then Iran, which is what they've done. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the agenda.
Remember, real men go to Tehran.
That's right. So it wasn't an either or thing. They just said, yeah, I mean, Iran, because it's much bigger than Iraq, that poses a bigger threat to us than Iraq does. But yeah, get Iraq out of the way, and then go on to Iran. I mean, it didn't, and from the Americans' point of view, it didn't make much sense to go after Iran before going after Iraq.
And George, you have an encyclopedic mind. So how many troops did Israel send to Iraq? How much money did they spend on?
Yeah, I don't remember how much they did.
I don't remember.
I don't think.
I guess there's nothing to remember because it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. That's right. And here, he goes. Iran makes every effort to possess weapons of mass destruction.
This could be written. This could have been published today.
That's right. And this is what's so bizarre. Dershowitz thinks that this is somehow a criticism of Joe Kent. And you're saying, yeah, this is Israel was pushing for this agenda all the way back, more than 20 years. Of course, it actually goes back to the 1990s, 30 years. But the idea that this is somehow, this is a devastating attack on Joe Kent. No, it's exactly the point. That this agenda of going after Iran was something that the Israelis were pushing more than 20 years ago. And now they've got they have their man in the Oval Office who's ready to do this. And then here again, Israel emphasizes Iranian threat. February 2002, and here Prime Minister Ariel Sharon arrives today for the White House visit. Israeli officials are redoubling efforts to warn the Bush administration that Iran poses a greater threat than the Iraqi regime of Saddam Hussein. That doesn't mean he's against the invading Iraq. He just says, yeah, Iraq first, then Iran. That's the prize. They always wanted that, the prize.
Yeah, and I'll hold your beer when you're doing it.
Exactly. I'll hold your beer. That's always so that was the excruciating Dershowitz. And here's Netanyahu, September the 20th, 2002, the case for toppling Saddam. What a shock. And then here's what it says. 2 decades ago, it was possible to thwart Saddam's nuclear ambitions by bombing a single installation. Today, nothing less than dismantling his regime will do. And now here is this guy. Remember Amos Hochstein?
Oh, yeah.
You remember him from the Biden administration?
He was ambassador to Turkey, but he was basically governor general of Lebanon.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And so he, of course, attacks Joe Kent. Whether you support the war or oppose it, Joe Kent is a well-known neo-Nazi racist.
Why is it I only hear this now? I've never heard anyone call him a neo-Nazi racist.
Well, that's right. Yeah. No, it is amazing how, it's well-known. Oh, of course, well-known. You just keep repeating it. Then it just becomes well-known. Well, now it's well-known. Everyone just repeats it. Evidence? Do you have, where is it said in anything neo-Nazi or racist? So, notice no one ever cites any documentary evidence for this. No one should be taking anything he says seriously, even if you happen to agree with some elements. And then Max Blumenthal adds to that, it's not neo-Nazi to point out that you served in the Israeli army, not America's. Then use your position in the Biden administration to steer U.S. policy in support of Israel's destruction of Lebanon.
Bravo.
It's not neo-Nazi. I don't think it's neo-Nazi to point that out. And then we have the disgusting Mark.
Oh God. Yeah. If you want to wreck someone's day, just pull out Mark Levin, okay?
Like, was he Catalsan deep throat? So they got the story now. They have the story out. Oh, he was a leaker. He was
Well,
leaking.
and I think in a few hours, Tucker's going to interview.
That's right, exactly. That's right. It's going to be I think it's
It's going to be
6
big.
p.m. 6 p.m.
It's going
Eastern
to
time. So
be
yeah,
big, and it's going to be live.
yeah, that's right.
It's going to be big.
That's going to be yeah. And of course he used to appear. That's why I didn't know much about him until he started appearing on Tucker
Fox
Carlson.
News.
Yeah.
Well, he was on Fox News before. I think he was a long. I mean, he was recurring, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think I remember seeing him a number of times on Fox News.
Well, maybe I only
Yeah.
remember him on Tucker's show, but he may have been on other things. And here's this guy who used to work for Trump. Joe Kent is a crazed egomaniac who was at the center of national security leaks, while rarely, never producing any actual work. How does this guy know whether he produced any work? I mean,
I think he worked. His position is pretty secret, isn't it? Okay.
He spent all of his time working to subvert the chain of command and undermine the president of the United States. Wow. Well, so he had to.
See, this is just, and this is one of the reasons I'm very skeptical of Twitter, because it's just pile on.
Right.
People take cues and they follow along. I mean, it really it's like a junior high school food fight. There's
There's a problem.
there's not much sophistication there.
No, there isn't.
And everyone, do not get your news from there.
Right.
Just don't get your news from there. I mean, if you want to know what people are commenting on the news, fine, but don't get your news there. I over the last 2 weeks, I would read something and I'd say, wait, don't react. I'm being baited. They bait us into reacting to something.
Right.
Don't do it. Sit back, okay? Because this is just quicksand. That's all this is.
Right. But it's interesting how they get their stories, all their ducks in a row. Just like, we had Dershowitz, boom, oh, Israel was against the Iraq invasion. Boom, then you just keep repeating it. Then you have, oh, he was a leaker. He was working with Tucker Carlson. He was leaking stuff to Tucker Carlson. Then you have, oh, he was a neo-Nazi, racist, white nationalist.
He was leaking to Tucker Carlson? What?
I have no idea. But here, this is Jackie Heinrich. She's the Fox News correspondent. She's a senior administration official says Joe Kent was a known leaker. So why wasn't he fired? Why?
Yeah,
he was a known leaker.
Yeah, but so I don't know. We could, because of I saw it all day today. It's people like this. They never comment on what he wrote in his letter.
Right. No, no one does. Exactly. No one does that.
Nobody comments what he wrote.
No. And was cut out of POTUS intelligence briefings months ago. Well, the interesting thing is that from going by media accounts, Tulsi Gabbard was cut out of intelligence briefings, which was quite remarkable in that you have the supposed intelligence chief of the U.S. government, who's cut out of the loop. So we're going to get our intelligence from Netanyahu. We're not going to get it from our own agencies. He has not been part of any Iran planning discussions or briefings at all. I don't even understand. Even if this is true, how is this in any way an answer to his criticism?
Yes.
He was obviously, and he was seen to be, very critical of this policy. Well, we know he was obviously very critical of the policy. So you're not really addressing his criticisms just by saying, oh, well, he was cut out of the loop. Well, okay, he was cut out of the loop, but he at least was sticking to the principle. He actually seemed to think that platform of 2024 of staying out of wars, no more regime change wars, actually meant something.
Well, George, considering how news flow is curated, who in the administration isn't a known leaker? Okay. I mean, no. I find that very specious. Okay.
I absolutely, I agree. So
and you know what? I mean, I'm not laser focused on on these, the gossips and going-ons in the administration here. But why am I hearing that he's a leaker now? I've never
No,
heard that him
no,
accused of it.
no, that's right. And you're right. Every administration is founded on leaks.
Of
They
course.
leak to their reporter. How does the New York Times get to write these stories about, well, the Trump administration is thinking this, and this about this country? Well, how do they know this? This is from leaks. This is,
Yeah, I mean,
administration officials are leaking to the New York Times.
that story that was the size of a phone book about the CIA in Ukraine, that was one huge leak,
Yeah, that's right.
everyone. But it wasn't based on a report,
Right.
something that was given to the public or maybe a briefing for Congress. It was, I don't know, it was like 15,000 words, and it was 15,000 words of leaks.
That's right. That's right. And it says officials say also that White House told DNI Gabbard Kent should be fired for suspected leaks, but she never did. So
Oh, no, that's going
but she
after
never,
her. Going after
she
her.
never did. So that, obviously, but the problem for Gabbard is that if she doesn't resign, I think she should resign really within the next 48 hours. If she doesn't, then I think she's very vulnerable to be just booted. She's given the boot. Once you're given the boot, you can't really stand on principle because you've been fired. It's a bit bloody late. Then afterwards, oh yeah, I really oppose the policy. Yeah, but you never came out to oppose the policy.
Is it possible that you see? I don't know the primary schedule of all states. I don't know the primary schedule of any state anymore in the United States. Could Joe Kent be a write-in for something?
He could be. He could be. I mean, he lost twice narrowly running for Congress. So if you make a principal resignation, you have a political future ahead of you.
Well,
If you
this
don't,
interview with Tucker
right,
is his platform.
yeah, that's right. Gabbard, by not resigning, is basically, for whatever reasons, for ambition, is actually kissing away any political future that she has. I mean, it's like Colin Powell. Once Colin Powell kind of betrayed his illustrious career when he started waving that test tube around at the UN Security Council, well, that was it. Everything he'd done before that has now been forgotten. All everyone remembers about him is that little test tube. And then Glenn Beck, you remember him from the, as in the Iraq War alumnus. Joe Kent, a top counterterrorism official, resigned today, claiming that Trump was duped by Israel into starting a war with Iran. Okay, Joe, where's the evidence?
I mean, how much time do you have, Glenn?
It's right bloody in front of you. 7 goddamn meetings between Trump and Netanyahu. Where's the evidence? The assault last June. I mean, middle of negotiations, Israel launches attack, and then the United States follows. Marco Rubio himself said, "Oh, Israel was going to attack Iran. There was nothing we could do to stop it, so we attacked Iran alongside Israel." Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, actually said, "Well, where's the evidence? I want the evidence. Give me evidence." The consequences of claim like this are too dire not to be backed with facts. If you have them, I'll stand with you, but present the evidence. Oh, well, I'm just looking for the evidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, Glenn Beck just is an ostrich with his head in the sand, really. I mean, for someone to write that, I mean, Glenn Beck, this is what people have been discussing for months, okay? There's enormous amount of it. I mean, all you have to do is put your little toe into Twitter, and people are talking about it incessantly.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But again, Glenn Beck is another one of those people who's a very ardent supporter of the Iraq invasion, and also, but recently he kind of reinvented himself as MAGA, America first. Oh, no more of these stupid
No,
wars.
he's a fanatical Mormon that is a fanatical Christian Zionist. It's very weird, toxic.
That's
mix
right.
there.
Yeah. Anyway, here was then the response of Caroline Leavitt.
I have to say that Caroline Leavitt she's actually quite good at her job. Okay. I mean, she's a pathological liar and puts it off on her little blonde smiley face. I mean, but
Unlike that woman Huckabee's
I'm
daughter.
making history. I'm
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of Trump's. Remember his press secretary in his first term. Remember the
Sean.
Huckabee's daughter.
Oh, how could yeah,
Well,
yeah.
she was really terrible because she was just very, very, very unlikable. But
And you could tell she didn't like defending a lot of things. You
no,
could just
right,
tell.
right. And it says, there are many false claims in this letter, but let me address one specifically, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. This is the same false claim the Democrats and some in the liberal media have been repeating over and over. As President Trump has clearly and explicitly stated, he had a strong and compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the United States first. Now, this is quite interesting. I mean, this is obviously different from what Marco Rubio had said, is that the opposite. We attacked Iran. But now this is the position I think that Trump is taking, which is Iran was going to attack the United States, which is very, quite remarkable that a country that is about a quarter of the size of the United States doesn't have anything like its military resources, doesn't have nuclear weapon, but would decide to attack the United States. It doesn't seem like a very, very rational or intelligent way to go, because since they all agree Iran didn't have nuclear weapons, I don't think it's a good idea to start attacking a nuclear power if you're not a nuclear power. I mean, that's just not the best way for self-preservation. So I mean, but that's the line they're going with. I have to say, this war is probably, of all the wars in my lifetime, has to be the most ridiculous and most poorly justified of any of the wars.
Well,
Iran was going to attack the United States.
We have the advantage, unlike maybe a lot of people that are now focused on this. But I don't know. I think for you, George, and certainly for me, the run up to the 2003 illegal war against Iraq is very fresh in my mind.
Right.
It stayed with me. Okay, and I have to say the drive to war in 2003. I mean, that was like a masterclass in propaganda.
Right.
This is just so flimsy. I mean, on my program yesterday, I told my guests, I said, every morning I have to pinch myself when I wake up. I said, is this really happening?
Right. Right.
What's the spin today?
Right. Right.
Because, people say that the Iraq War was the worst strategic blunder of the United States. This doesn't even, I mean, that's like, I was trying to make a comparison with Watergate and with with Hunter Biden or something like that. This is a small beer in comparison.
That's right. So they can't even get this issue just straight. They have Secretary of State Rubio says this. She says, "Oh, Iran was going to attack the United States first," and then we had Trump yesterday saying we averted a nuclear holocaust. Apparently, 4 years ago, Iran was going to launch a nuclear holocaust.
And then you have Steve Witkoff saying that they're going to have a bomb in 2 weeks.
Right. And then it says, this evidence was compiled from many sources and factors. President Trump would never make the decision to deploy military assets against a foreign adversary in a vacuum.
Well, he didn't do it in a vacuum. He was doing it for the Israelis. Okay.
Exactly. The president, through his top negotiators, gave the regime every single possible opportunity to abandon this unacceptable course by permanently giving up their nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions relief, free nuclear fuel, and potential economic partnerships with our country. Now, the problem, let's say everything she says there is true. That was the Americans were offering. If you're a leader of Iran, why would you believe that you're going to get sanctions relief? Why would you believe you're going to get free nuclear fuel? Why would you believe that you're going to get any economic partnerships with the United States? Once you give up your enriched uranium, once you give up your missiles, you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get any sanctions relief.
You're going to get regime change.
You're going to get regime change. I mean, remember what happened with North Korea? North Korea signed a deal with the Clinton administration. You know, they basically they stopped their plutonium production, but in return, the Americans were supposed to provide them with two light water reactors. They never got the light water reactors.
You know, you have to listen to Lawrence Wilkerson. I think you can find it on YouTube, and he was in the Bush administration and the first one, and he said the United States was never intended to honor that agreement
Right.
with the North Koreans.
Right.
He said never,
Right.
and he was in the room.
Right. Right. That's right. That's right. But they would not say yes to peace because obtaining nuclear weapons was their fundamental goal.
Well, see, gets to the crux of it here. But they would not say yes. No, it's the United States and Israel can never say yes to peace.
Exactly.
Never.
And, you know, that's right. And you know, we talked already about the Omani foreign minister. What he said went on in the talks. This has now been confirmed by Jonathan Powell, who representative of Keir Starmer. He was there. He said, "Yeah, there was a deal on the table."
The Guardian. That's in the Guardian, I think, yesterday or today.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we can take a look at that. I have that. We can take a look at that article. So that's what he said. Yeah, there was a deal. There. So, oh no, there was the fundamental goal. President Trump ultimately made the determination that a joint attack with Israel would greatly reduce the risk to American lives that would come from a first strike by terrorist Iranian regime and address this imminent threat to America's national security interests. So again, so she's now second time she said the first strike from Iran. So Iran was going to attack the United States. Why? I mean, I don't know. So why would Iran attack the United States? I don't. You know, it's never quite explained why Iran would do it, but yeah, just out of the blue would attack the United States.
Well, I mean, you know, Trump was president before. Why didn't he take care of Iran then? Or why didn't Iran attack the
Right.
United States? I mean,
Right.
there's no chronology to analyze.
Right. That's right. Exactly. And then all of this led to President Trump arriving at the determination that this military operation was necessary for U.S. national security, which is why he launched the massively successful.
Okay, George, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but this is a tweet, right?
Yes, it's a very long, exactly, a very long tweet. Yeah.
Has she mentioned Israel once?
No. No.
Okay.
The commander-in-chief determines what does and does not constitute a threat because he's the one constitutionally empowered to do so, and because the American people went to the ballot box and entrusted him and him alone to make such final judgments. Yes, but they went to the ballot box because he specifically promised that we no more of these endless Middle East wars. That was the key to his rise in 2016, that, you know, no more of these Bush-Cheney wars. And finally, the absurd allegation that President Trump made this decision based on the influence of others, even foreign countries, is
Can't even say it. Can't even say it.
Is both insulting and laughable. President Trump has been remarkably consistent and has said for decades that Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. So,
well, Caroline, you've just ensured that Trump will never dig himself out of this.
No,
you did it. You did it.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
You know, the cement is drying as we read this long tweet. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And then Tulsi Gabbard, she said,
"Oh, this got so much coverage." Go ahead. Yeah.
This is so feeble because everyone was looking. Well, hey, I mean, you know, what's your position on this? Well, Donald Trump.
I mean, okay. I don't know what the causality is here. Is Tulsi Gabbard now just mimicking Trump's press corps? Trump was overwhelmingly elected. I mean, is this their new trope? He can unconstitutionally go to war because he was overwhelmingly elected.
That's right. Yeah.
And as George pointed out, overwhelmingly elected on a different platform.
On a completely different platform. Anyway, so as our commander-in-chief, he's responsible for determining what is and is not an imminent threat, and whether or not to take action.
A talking point.
That's the point. It's a talking point, and this is really the issue. No one's, you know, we're not getting into these constitutional arguments. That really isn't the issue. You said in March 2025 that Iran is nowhere near to having a nuclear weapon and have made a decision not to develop nuclear weapons. So that's the issue. And yet you are there, you basically you rose to prominence, to national prominence, purely on the basis of opposing this war, any war on Iran. I mean, we looked at it earlier. These you've been saying these things right all the way back until Trump's first term. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence provided to provide the President and Commander-in-Chief with the best information available, blah, blah. I mean, is this what you just copy and paste from the web page? After carefully reviewing all of the information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist Islamist regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took action based on that conclusion. What is the point of this? What is the point of saying this something completely vacuous like that? Well, he made a decision. The question is, why are you a part of something that you said you would not be a part of? So that was the and I actually think her position is really the most I think the most disgraceful, really, because precisely that this was really her issue. If this is your issue, and then you just simply and then your deputy resigns, then you say, well, okay, what about you? Where are you on this? And instead of addressing that, which is what everybody wants to know, well, where are you on this? She starts, copying and pasting, stuff from her.
Where is she on his letter?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. The president.
I mean, if there's anyone that would know about his work production, his boss would. So
that's right. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to show before we conclude. I just want to show this article in the Guardian, and this is from Jonathan Powell, whom we're not exactly admirers of, to say the least. Here's UK security advisor attended US-Iran talks and judged deal was within reach. Jonathan Powell thought Tehran's surprising offer on its nuclear program could prevent rush to war, sources say. And then Jonathan Powell attended the final talks between the US and Iran and judged that the offer made by Tehran on its nuclear program was significant enough to prevent a rush to war. Powell thought progress had been made in Geneva in late February and that the deal proposed by Iran was surprising, according to sources. Powell's presence at the talk and his close knowledge of how they were progressing was confirmed by 3 sources. One source said he was in the building at Oman's ambassadorial residence in Geneva, acting as an advisor, reflecting widespread concern about the U.S. expertise
or lack thereof.
But of course, in a way, they didn't need any expertise because they had to come to a conclusion. That's the conclusion that they were going to come to. So the last thing they wanted was any kind of expertise. They arrived at the conclusion that they wanted to arrive at.
You have to wonder if they, during these meetings, that if Witkoff and Kushner kept doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
Would it be over?
That's right, exactly. When we're kind of getting thirsty, one drinks now. That's right, and that was the same thing with the run up to the Iraq War. They say, "Oh, the intelligence was bad." No, the intelligence was not bad. It was just because the leaders in Washington, they already had the conclusion in their minds where they were going to go. So it didn't really matter what the intelligence showed because they already were determined to go to war. So the idea, oh well, if only we had somebody with expertise, you don't need anyone with any expertise. They already were determined to go to war. Kushner and Witkoff had invited Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA.
I would say the discredited Director General.
I agree. To provide technical expertise, though Kushner would later claim that he and Witkoff had a pretty deep understanding of the... well, pretty deep. Yeah.
Good.
Nuclear experts would later say that Witkoff's pronouncements on the Iran nuclear program were riddled with basic errors. Yeah, like they were about to get, what, 11 nuclear weapons any minute now, yeah. Powell had long experience as a mediator, and one source said Powell brought an expert from the QK cabinet office with him. And then one Western diplomat said Jonathan thought there was a deal to be done, but Iran were not quite there yet, especially on the issue of UN inspectors of its nuclear sites. And then
which would eventually translate into American inspection.
American, that was an extraordinary thing, yeah. And then a former official was briefed on the Geneva talks by some of the participants, said Witkoff and Kushner did not bring a U.S. technical team with them. What a surprise. They used Grossi as their technical expert, but that is not his job. So Jonathan Powell took his own team. The UK team was surprised by what the Iranians put on the table, the former official said. It was not a complete deal, but it was progress and was unlikely to be the Iranians' final offer. The British team expected the next round of negotiations to go ahead on the basis of progress in Geneva. Now, I'm not exactly, a huge fan here of the British, and they're being kind of disingenuous here, saying, oh, well, he didn't bring it, as if it's all a matter of bringing experts. No, these are your allies, and they were absolutely determined to go to war. I mean, of course, they didn't bring any experts. I mean, they weren't interested in any of these technical issues. They say, when, Trump told them, we're going to be bombing within 2 days, so just go through the motions, and that's it. So, well, if only they brought some experts. There was no need for any experts.
This will go down on the annals. This, what we just read, that will be a document that will be used, showing the farcical, how farcical this whole exercise is. I don't know, again, I was a younger man, obviously, 20 years ago. The internet was still just kind of getting off the ground and all that. I could see through the machinations of the Bush administration. But they had very powerful, they poured in powerful resources to make their case.
Right.
Remember, everyone, it was a popular war in the beginning.
Right, it was. Yeah.
From the beginning, from the get-go, it was popular.
Right.
Okay. This administration didn't even make an attempt.
No, none at all. None at all.
And again, if you're a consumer of news on a regular basis, I mean, you have to be a complete idiot not to realize, I think we've heard all this stuff before, but it was like 20 years ago, and it was a country that began with an I.
That's right. That's right. And you're right. So they had a lot of smoothies, long-time Washington hands who knew exactly how to massage the media. Cheney had been there for decades. He'd been the congressman, part of the congressional leadership. Then he was defense secretary. Then he was vice president. Colin Powell. I mean, he'd done everything. National security advisor, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, defense secretary, secretary of state. So they knew how Washington worked. They knew the media. They were on first name terms with all the people who, the meet the press and then, deface the nation and everything else. So they knew how to play the game. Trump hasn't done any of that. Yeah. And that's why these stories, they're all kind of all over the place. So Iran was going to attack the United States. That's the opposite of what Marco Rubio said. You can't even get there's something so obvious, in sync as to who actually started attacking whom.
We still really have very little understanding on how Trump governs, because, I mean, does he get all these guys together in the room at the same time, or does he talk to individuals? Because there's no cohesion here. There's no united front. Now, the Bush-Cheney people, right, they had that top priority. They had top priority. Okay, it was extremely smooth. Okay, exactly. And that's what was so frustrating for people like ourselves, is that we knew they were wrong. No, they had a very smooth message.
They were lying, but that's exactly it. And that's where their expertise mattered. Cheney, Powell, the guy who was the CIA chief, George Tenet, they'd all been through the mill for years and years. They knew exactly how Washington worked. And you're right. It worked like a well-oiled machine. It was a catastrophe, a total catastrophe, but it was a well-oiled machine. This is anything but a well-oiled machine. I think that this is they really Trump is going to be a really discredited figure. I think, once his term in office is over, if he actually lasts the term, he's going to be somewhere in the bowels of cable news, probably doing interviews with Steve Bannon and saying, I was right about everything, I was sabotaged by such and so, so and so and so. But I don't think they have any kind of a future ahead of them.
That will be the most die-hard dead enders
Yeah.
that will listen to that. But for the very simple reason, and Tucker used it, the word, this is an utter betrayal. Why should I listen to anything you have to say?
No, sir, nothing.
Utter betrayal.
Right.
It's shocking. And we don't know how this is going to play out. I mean, I keep looking at snippets of Western media. You just want to grab them by the collar and say, yeah, maybe Trump wants out, but he's not going to, the Israelis aren't going to let him out, and the Iranians are not going to let him out.
No.
He's in.
He's
He
in.
can't get out.
That's right.
And it's really interesting how Iran and Israel are actually have common cause right now. Keep the Americans in the war.
Right. That's right. That's right.
And again, I don't want to overly speculate here, but the Abraham Lincoln going in for repairs and all that. There's a lot of very weird stories. It was actually hit by some ballistic missiles. It was self-harm by the crew. And in Crete, there were people, local media, that had more of an inside. Said that the morale on the ship is very, very. They've been at sea for an inordinate amount of time. What I'm trying to say is that very little information that we can, sink our teeth in. It's even we're in what now is 16th day or something?
No, it's more than that. So it was, it was 15 Saturday, 16, 17, 18. I think it was it must be now 19 days here. Yeah.
And what do we know?
Yeah.
We don't know much.
No, we don't know much. But it's clear Israel is continuing with this policy, these assassinations, which, Trump cannot possibly support this because, you're removing anyone who could actually negotiate with you. And Israel is not only is Israel doing this, Israel has made clear we're going to continue doing this. So Trump who says, well, I have to be in on the decision of who's going to be the leader. No, you're not in this. Israel is just going around. Israel is making the decision as to who will be leader, or that nobody will be leader. Somehow Iran will break apart. And then you have to ask Trump, is that an American goal? Is that something that will serve American interests if Iran collapses as a result of this Israeli policy? I'm not saying this Israeli policy will work, but that's the Israeli goal. We just keep killing their leaders until the government collapses and then society collapses. Is that the Washington goal? Trump hasn't spelled anything out, so he's allowing Israel just to run the whole show.
Yeah, it's interesting with his Oval Office meeting with the Irish Prime Minister. It's interesting where we are right now, or at least where they are, is how this all started. Okay, that's all nice and fine, and it's important, and it will remain important. But let's talk about where we are right now, okay? And he doesn't want to talk about that, okay? And again, I think Israel is sabotaging. Every step of the way, even during the conflict, Israel is sabotaging this administration, or at least they have the one step ahead of them. They can see what's going on.
Right.
Obviously, Trump and I am not a psychologist, but you can look at stills of his face. He is under an enormous amount of pressure. That's why he's lashing out in the most idiotic ways, saying nonsense, okay?
Right.
Verifiably nonsense, okay? And he knows he is in a pickle,
Yep.
and there is no escape. The door shut behind you, and it's locked, okay?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And isn't it really interesting, George, is that the Israelis don't give a rat's ass about Trump.
No, they never
No.
did. No. Yeah. He seems even to have forgotten the grievance that he had against Bibi. The whole thing about the assassination of Soleimani, how basically, Bibi was AWOL when he came down to kill Soleimani. It was an American operation. And then, of course, that Bibi rushed to recognize Biden's election win in 2020 and wouldn't support Trump's claims that he had won. So Netanyahu doesn't care. I mean, they absolutely don't care. For them, it's America is there to fight our wars. Just as we looked at it, first Iraq, then Iran. Israel can't do it. Israel just doesn't have this. It's a small country, 9 million. It cannot fight these wars. America can fight these wars, and so that's it. We've got America fighting our wars for us. That's nice, And then we have our lobby in the United States that screams anti-Semitism the moment this obvious fact is pointed out.
Yeah, but that that horse is bolted the barn. This it's anti-Semitic. This guy, he was a neo-Nazi. I don't think it hits anymore. I don't think it lands anymore. I think people are so tired of this ridiculous, saturated conversation. He was a you know. You know, he did 11 tours. Okay, he believed in the mission. Okay, all right. I didn't believe in any of those missions.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah, but
all right. But so I mean, then to turn around and say he was a neo-Nazi. Well, what are neo-Nazis doing in the American military?
Exactly.
I mean, these things. You parse their words. All it is just a slur.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you can't say it was for Israel. I mean, everybody knows now it was for Israel.
That's right.
Everybody knows.
Right. Yeah.
And now you have to justify, well, but why did you do it for Israel? See, it's not the question, was Israel involved in decision making? Well, of course, everyone knows it was. I mean, but our question is, well, why do they have that position of power and influence? Inquiring minds would like to know, particularly if you're out there in West Hollywood, California, and it's $8 a gallon. I mean, so why did we do this for Israel? It didn't help me.
No, that's right. It didn't. And as we've seen, this was pointed out by no less than Tulsi Gabbard. She said all of this, and then for reasons that we have yet to explain, she's completely reversed her position and is now part of this war. Never really explained what changed from March 2025 to June of 2025 and now February 2026, but she's continued. And now I think all of that is going to be addressed, because at least in the case of Colin Powell, he said, well, I was deceived. Now, that was always a very flimsy argument, because you held the most senior positions in the US government. You're exactly the person who is not supposed to be deceived. I mean, it's not like some Joe Schmo from the street. Oh, well, I was deceived by intelligence. Hey, you're really at the very top of the whole military security apparatus. You're not supposed to be deceived.
That's not a plausible explanation or excuse, actually, because you're the guy, and people like you. You're the guys that stir people the wrong way. You backstab, you gossip. That's part of the trade, okay? And oh my God, I was victim of it. Come on, that's nonsense,
That's right.
okay?
Yeah.
Was Colin Powell a prolific leaker? Yeah. Everybody's a leaker. You're going after your enemies, and even people on your own side. You want to derail them, your competitor and all of that, or another agency. That's part and part. I mean, look at the House of Cards. I mean, at least the first few seasons of it. It's exactly what it's like.
Yeah. Well, I think we should all tune in today for Tucker Carlson's interview with Joe Kent. I think that should be quite interesting, and I think we'll probably get some interesting the inside dope, at least to some extent, for what happened.
Yeah, and maybe get a clearer idea of what's going on in the administration. I mean, the question for us is how chaotic is it, okay? And who is sitting in the room, all right? All right, everybody, this is our ongoing coverage. Joe Kent, a modicum of respect. I think you did the right thing.
You have to respect anyone who
Yeah,
resigns.
I'm really, really glad you're going to be talking to Tucker because we're going to get the inside dope instead of listening to Alan Dershowitz, okay? And then, of course, he'll be dumped on after the interview, and so will Tucker. But
No, exactly.
the lines of confrontation are getting clearer and clearer in domestic politics.
That's
Anyway, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. The canines are down. Oh no, one's up. One's up.
Yes. So they say, yeah. I mean, we was working a year and a day, and the tip jar, however, doesn't seem to be moving in the
tipping
right
up.
direction.
It's not tipping up.
It's exactly, and they say, this is not a satisfactory business model. They care a lot about business models. They went to the Harvard Business School. I mean, so they know something about business models. So the point I think they're making is that work has to be remunerated, that there's money has to change hands. So if you have anything at all lying around,
change pause.
Okay. Exactly, change pause. So if you have anything lying around that you're not putting to good use, $100 bills, crypto, or whatever, into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, we're not going to get any more of these lectures about business models. It's really very tiresome. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.